What's up, everyone? Coach Tony here. In this training, we're going to talk about the SAT and the ACT going into the 2026 year. Should we take it? Should we not take it? How do we study for the exams? That's what we're going to be covering in this video. If it's our very first time meeting, my name is Coach Tony, former UC Berkeley admissions reader, former UCLA outreach director. The last 16 years, our team and I, we've been helping families kind of navigate this admissions process. The difference is that, again, you hear online a lot of people talk about how do we stand out? How do we look different? In today's world, I will safely tell you it's really, really, really hard to stand out. So our approach to admissions is a little different than most people. Our focus is how do we give the admission readers what they're trained to look for? Because again, when I was a reader for Berkeley, it wasn't random things that we're looking for. There were specific things that we're trained to look for in the process. No difference with any other factor in today's admissions world. So our goal is to help you guys understand what admissions is looking for so you guys can kind of navigate with confidence over here. Okay, so let me go ahead and guys share my screen really quick so we can dive in and start taking some notes. Today, again, we're going to talk about the SD and ACT in 2026 here today. So really quick, let's kind of do a little like always, do some of the theory, and we'll dive into more tactical things, right? So first off, where does this fit under, right? We always tell this, there's three things in the admissions process. There's the academics, the activities, and the application itself. Today, we're fitting under the academics umbrella as well too. So when it comes to the academics umbrella, there's a few things that admissions will look for, right? They'll look at your grades, grade trends, your rigor, and then this falls under test scores. If you had to put an order, by the way, I would put it like this. That's all it is. So for a lot of schools, rigor is going to be one of the most important factors in the admissions process. Your trends of your grades and also test scores are important as well. The reason why we're bringing this up and why this is a topic, because again, if you ask me, my first batch of students we worked with, we told everyone go take it, because it was the norm. It was the thing to do for every school. Take your SAT, take your ACT as well. However, in today's world, it is a little different. So the first thing to understand is that there's different types of testing that schools will want, right? There's three of them. The types, there's colleges that are, right? First one, tests required, right? So this is like old school. Everyone who like you to apply to our school, you need to submit your test scores for us to consider you as part of the process. This is what test required is, right? The other extreme is called test blind. Some schools call it test free as well too, right? This is, they don't even look at it. So if you had a score that you can't put it on the application, you can't even see it. The most famous school system that does this is the UCs, right? UCs and the Cal States. They are test blind, test free. So really quick, for those who are in this training and you're like, my child's only looking at UCs, only look at Cal States, I'll save you the rest of the video. You can click out for at least this next coming year, at least to 2028. UCs are in Cal States are test blind, test free, doesn't affect you in any way. So again, this is if only you're applying to UCs and Cal States. However, if you're applying to other schools, keep following along. Okay, so test required, test blind, test free. The third one is test optional, right? And this one has the most different verbs. They call it test flexible, test recommended, a lot of these other ones as well too, but this was really just test optional, meaning you can send it in and they can consider it if you send it in. If you don't send it in, they're not going to penalize you for not sending it in. That's what the test optional looks like for these three categories. So these are the three different schools, and the most example of this is like the Ivies, right? Most Ivies and top 25 colleges, right? The reason why I say most is that I think Columbia is the only Ivy that doesn't require require the test scores. And the example here is most colleges today. So just a heads up, most colleges today is going to be test optional schools. When you look at their schools, you see that they do that. So we'll talk about this as well. Okay, so going back, test scores plays a role, but keep in mind in the greater scheme of the admissions process, should we spend all of our energy and effort on this? No, right? So keep in mind, the reason why we always start with this is we understand that the academics is important. However, the activities and the applications are going to be a much bigger contribution to your success of admissions, yes or no. So again, because this falls under academics, it's important. But should we neglect our activities or neglect our essays to take an exam? I do not recommend that. Okay, so just keeping that in mind, right? Now we kind of have the kind of like little setup there, the theory's done, diving in, right? So what do we do in here? Because as we go into 2026, right, schools are also test required. By the way, more schools are shifting back to required. If you guys have watched the news, a lot of colleges are moving back from this big pile of optional. A lot of schools are moving to required as well too. Not many full schools have moved to blind. This is all UCs have kind of stood by themselves in this bucket as well too. But most colleges are moving from optional to required. So to keep that in mind, moving from optional to required. Not all of them. You'll see that a lot of schools have like the optional stance. The UCs like the test free, but even the UCs, they have a statement till they're locked in till 2028 anyways. Okay, so keeping that in mind. So if you are a sophomore right now, for the UCs, you can plan that the schools will stay blind for you. However, freshmen right now, it may change by the time you guys are seniors. Okay, so that's gonna be the different categories over here. Okay, so that's keeping that in mind. So now, what should we and what shouldn't we do is the key, right? So a few things. I kind of talked about this. The first scenario number one, is all colleges are test free or test blind, right? So again, like I mentioned earlier, if you're only applying to UCs, and Coach Tony, I only going to apply to like the 4 UCs, 4 Cal States, and that's it, doing nothing else there, right? Then you can skip this entire thing because it means nothing to you, right? It means nothing to you is the first scenario. Again, and then we have families that are in this bucket. It's kind of thing. So again, don't stress out. Don't do it. You can't even put it on the UC app if you wanted to, and you sneak it in. They tell you don't sneak it in. So keep that in mind there, right? So that's the first scenario. The second scenario that's more very straightforward is number two is all your colleges or some of your colleges are test required, right? Because if some of your schools are test required, where's my mouse? Right? Are test required, right? If they are test required, we have to take the exam, right? So what does it mean? We have to, we have to plan to take our exam and submit our scores, right? You can't not, if you don't, your app is incomplete. That is an automatic rejection if you don't do that as well too. But again, how the score is going to affect you, right? We'll talk about the scores in a little bit for you guys too, right? Because there is a recommended score that we do encourage our students to hit in a bit, okay? That's the second scenario if some of your schools test required. Last one, if some of your schools are test optional, right? So if it's part of test optional, right, what do we like to recommend here? So in this scenario, I would say you want to take a practice test first, right? And see where you're scoring and see where you're starting at, right? Another way to do this, option, right? The PSAT, right? In the chat real fast, has anyone here taken the PSAT before? The PSAT 8, PSAT 10, PSAT 11. There's like different years where you can take the various PSA. There's a few yeses in the chat, and those are too. Fantastic. The PST is modeled after the ST. It's not the same exact scores. You cap out, I think, 15, 20 over there as well too. They have a different scoring system altogether. Like that's out 220 or 2 something. But it's very, very similar. It's made by the same makers, the College Board. So if you take the PSAT, that gives you a good indication of what rough score would you get if you took the SAT tomorrow. Is kind of what it looks like as well. Okay, and here is what the things are. So you practice test, or you can do a mock test, right? Mock test, a mock test as well too. Little sneak peek for those who don't know. You can go onto the College Board website. I think collegeboard.org, collegeboard.org, I think, or .com. I think they're .com. And there's act.org, the two sites there. You can download full-length practice tests from their website. And who better to give you a test than the people who make the test, who write the test themselves. So we always encourage official exam. If you want to do practice tests, do it from the official sites. So College Board and ACT, right, is a thing. But your first thing is you want to take the practice test scores. And then you see, right? See where your score is at right away. What we like to recommend, right? And then evaluate if you should or should not take the exam as well too, right? Officially is the key. Okay, so that's kind of the different criteria, different buckets that you guys will probably be in. You're either gonna fall under one, two, or three. It's usually I can't think of an example where you're not in any of the any of the four, any of the three scenarios so far. Okay, so now how do we know, right? So say you mentioned that you have to take the practice test, and also we got to have a score to submit your scores. What is the recommended score? So for the last 5 years, I would say, ever since the schools went test optional, we've been kind of using our students as kind of guinea pigs as well too, right? Having our students take the exams, kind of seeing, where are students at in this journey? What scores are you sending? When they submit it, how well do they do in the admissions process? And we found a magical number that has helped a lot of our students as well too. So so there's no one set number. So you don't say, oh, I want to get a 1500 and I'm good to go, right? This number is relative, right? It's relative to you and your specific college list. So real quick, I'll do a live example. In the chat, can you guys post some colleges that you're applying to, you're thinking of applying to, that's not test blind, meaning don't put the UCs, right? UCs are dumb blind, but what schools are test optional? Which colleges are test required? You can drop that in the chat. I'll do a real life example of the colleges. You can see the scores here. But for us, the recommended score we like to recommend for our students to be competitive, right, is going to be the 75th percentile of the incoming class. That's the number that you want to be competitive, right? And we always recommend also at least the 50th percentile for the score to matter. So I think that's gonna be the big things to understand is the key over here, right? So let's say, well, what does that mean? Okay, so let's look at the chat real fast. So in the chat, the first one I see, University of Washington, right? Apparently, that's actually a few people typed the school as well too. So example, University of Washington. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna Google, right? I'm gonna Google search it, right? University of Washington, right? University of Washington, 75th SAT percentile as well too, right? And once I search this up, you'll see that someone's gonna do the math here. It's 1500 is the key, right? So for this school, the example is 1500 is the 75th percentile, right? So for those of you who are applying to University, and is the University of Washington test required? Test required. It looks like optional, right? No longer required, optional. There we go. So this is optional school, right? So this is a test. UW is a test optional as well too, right? So and then the last thing is the 50th percentile, 50th percentile SAT, 1405. Okay, so 50th is the 1405. 1405 is the 50th percentile as well too. Okay, so here's kind of our logic when it comes to this school and so on. So first off, this is a test optional school, right? So that means if you submit your score above the 50th, if you have over 1400 score, it's gonna help you anyway. So even if you got a 1420, send it in. It's gonna help you with your admissions process because it's an optional school. Okay. If, let's say, we're applying to a required school where you want to make sure you stand out, you want to aim for the 75th percentile, means we want to aim for 1500 is kind of the key, or higher. Okay, so that's kind of what this means, that we, based on the list that we're looking at, you do the same thing with all your colleges, right? And you look at the bigger school, right? So you have like 5 schools that you did for. The one, if this one's 1500, another school is like a 1300, another school is 1550. We use the 1550 as because in theory, if you get to the biggest school, you hit all the other schools as well. So this is the mathematical answer, I would say. It has worked really good. Again, of course, there's some nuances. Every student is special. Every student is different. There's a lot of things we can say. Is this a have to number? No, as well too. There's kind of leniency as well too. But this is based on kind of our student data that we've had the last 5 years with our students applying to these schools as well too, right? So number one, Your goal is to aim for the 75th percentile, if not at least the 50th percentile of the college itself. So for this, if I was to go to UW, apply to UW, I'd want to prepare for a 1400 test score. Okay. However, right. So let's see how this is test optional. Right? Here's the strategy here. So let's say, example, Johnny, right? Johnny's a student, right? Johnny's student took the PSAT, the mock SAT, and got a 1380 on the mock as well too, right? If Johnny took a got 1380, and I know that the 50th percentile to make it matter, to make it count, is a 1400, right? He's only like 20 points off for the, or like 25 points off, right? For the UW SAT 50th percentile, right? In that case, I would study and take the exam. Take the exam as well too. That's like option, that's scenario number one, right? Let's just call scenario number one. Okay. However, let's do another scenario. Let's say scenario number two. Let's say Johnny took the mock SAT and got a 980 as well too, right? So he is how many points is off? He's off by 980. Is it 420 plus? Off by 420 plus points as well too, right? Can he do it? Yes, he can, right? However, it is going to take a lot of studying, a lot of prep to get him to the score that he needs. So if this, like say, this is the only school that he's applying to, I would say you weigh the options as well too. Because could you study? You could, right? This would take you about 3-4 months to study, right, to get to this desired score perfectly, right? So if you study it perfectly, the way it takes, again, a rough average is 100 points per month is usually what we see. Well, but it does caveat again. There's a natural plateau at 250, 300. So anything past that is going to be pretty hard to do in such a short time if you home study it long enough. Is the key there. So in this scenario, I would actually recommend we skip the SAT for this student as well too. Okay, so that's a few if then scenarios when it comes to this situation here. Okay, now that we know, like, here's the different scenarios, how do we actually prep? How do we actually prepare for these exams is a thing. So there's two exams, right? You can take the SAT versus the ACT as well too. In the chat, anyone here taking the SAT, drop the SAT in the chat. Those of you planning to take the ACT, drop the ACT in the chat so I can kind of get a gauge of how many of each do we have as well. So looks like we have a lot of SATs. So I think we have a few ACTs. There you go. Now there's more ACTs. So it's okay. So it's a little more SATs, but again, it's like a nice little mix of both as well too. So let's talk about them a little bit because again, they have changed, right? You guys been following the ACT just moved, the SD went digital like over a year now, and the ACT just changed as well too. They just changed back in April earlier this year as well. So now they're a lot closer. And then for me, I googled this before this call, so I don't have to waste all your time here. So the first thing, right, is when it comes to the SAT itself, right? So I'm gonna try to the SAT itself, right? A few things to keep in mind. It's a fully digital exam, right? It's adaptive. What this means is that it changes. If you did really well, your second part of your exam gets harder. So if your second exam gets easier, it means you didn't do so hot in the first exam. That means your score is gonna be capped. There's no way you can get a perfect score if you get an easier section. It goes from regular up to harder, and if you do really, really well, that's a 600 over there. Okay, so there's two main sections to this exam. There's the reading and writing. This one is a 64-minute, 32-minute modules, and with 54 questions. And there's a math. There's 70 minutes. With broken down two different sections here, with 44 questions total over here as well. So the total time you get is 2 hours and 14 minutes to do the whole exam. This is a big context for parents who have kids a long time ago as well too. It used to be 4 plus a 4 hour long test. Now it's a lot shorter now. There is no essay. There is no essay on these, is the key. Okay, so keep in mind that's gonna be the big one. When it comes to the module, I mentioned this earlier. The modules is gonna change based on performance as well too. It will get harder if you're doing well. That's kind of expected as well. And each section, the reading, writing, and the math are out of 800, so you get two sub scores, right? This and that, and you put together to get the total 1600 at the end of the day. Okay, so that's going to be the SAT itself. One quick note over here, so people know as well too, is that this is what makes these exams really special, right? You see how there's a lot of questions for not a lot of time. This is a fast exam, right? To the point that this is not a real, I always joke, but this is not a real exam, because a real exam, you probably have time to go through all the questions. If you go through every single question one by one and did the correct work for everything, you will run out of time. These are timed tests, is kind of how it is, which means these exams have two parts, right? These exams have two parts to them. There is going to be a knowledge component, means you have to understand what they're testing you on. You need fundamentals of algebra, you need fundamentals of geometry, you gotta be good in grammar, good in sentence structure, reading comprehension. You need to know the knowledge component, but the true part is the test strategies component as well too, which is, hey, if you see this question, if you see the word always, the answer is false. If you see this triangle, the answer is always B, right? There's a level of understanding the test strategies component. This is why, by the way, when students try to take the exam early and they study for it, they don't do so hot because they need to study both. A lot of ninth graders who try to take this exam and they try to do really well during the exam, they're doing both of them together. You get to learn the skills and the test strategies. So typically what we like to recommend for students, right, timeline wise, right? We like to recommend in 10th grade, you take the PSAT for the first time usually through your school, or practice test, right? Practice mock as well too, and that's your first time. And don't study without studying, right? The reason why is I want to see what your natural score is. If you're doing well, then if good, if well, right? Take the real thing as well too. If you're not doing well, like majority of folks are not that hot, then either way, 11th grade, you take the PST again, right, as well too, right? That's again, don't study, only study if you're close to national merit. So really quick, for those who don't know, your 11th grade PSAT qualifies you national merit if you score within the top of your state as well too. So if your score made the cutoff, you qualify for national merit. That's a potential full ride scholarship at several schools as well too. So it's pretty cool if you get it. Again, very tough, especially those in California, by the way. Our cutoff is a perfect score. So pretty tough to get there. So if you're not close, don't study for it. But then I recommend taking it, studying in either December, March, June, right? These exam dates specifically as well too, because this will give you time, because by now you will have already learned the knowledge, right? If you go through high school in general, your math classes, your English classes, by the time you get to this point, you would have the knowledge down of the math and the knowledge of the English. So all we study now is the test strategy. That's why a lot of families, I don't encourage people starting earlier. There's better uses for your time earlier, but the big thing is to be done with the knowledge so that you can only focus and cram the test strategies, the test taking skills. That's what's more important, I feel, to get a really competitive score really fast. Okay, so that's gonna be the lessons. But here's the SAT for those who are curious. Here's the ACT. It not a lot of people talk about it too much as well, but it's a great exam. It used to be great for students who were more stronger in math as well. However, ever since the change, it's no longer that way as well too. Okay, so again, the big change they did is they shortened the format a little bit. There's fewer questions here. So again, very similar. They still do English. This one is going to be 35 minutes. 50 questions. You can see here, you have less than a minute for a question. You almost 2 answers per minute is kind of how you want to pace yourself. Okay. Next one is math. Math is 50 minutes, 45 questions. They give you a little more time here because the question is a little harder. The reading, 40 minutes. 36 questions. Keep in mind this reading comprehension over here. There's going to be an optional section. So this is the new change also, because last year, right, the science is required. Right, the science is required as well too. Now it's optional. We tend to recommend if you are interested in a science field. I'm a pre-med student. I'm an engineering student. We recommend taking it if you are that. Okay, and same in the essays as well too. Optional, unless the school tells you to take it, is the key. Okay, so again, time for the core you can see is also roughly 2 hours. Also, if you do it with the optional, it's 3.5 hours over here. Okay, so changes to the exam is that now instead of 4 choices, there's 4. So process of elimination helps you a little bit more as well too. Composite score only includes the 3 sections, not the science as well. The other thing I didn't share in either of these, but then you don't get penalized for guessing. So again, one of the other things for if you're one of the test skills, by the way, strategies, if you're running short on time, you want to guess. You don't want to leave anything blank. You leave it blank, you have a 0% chance of getting it right. If you pick it, you get 25%, unless you narrow it down, and your odds go up, right? Those who know that, right? But that's gonna be the big thing when it comes to these exams itself here. Okay, so the ST versus ACT, it doesn't matter. People focus one or the other. Pick the one that your child likes or does better in, which means you should take a full-length practice test for both. The most important thing is follow the time limits. People think, oh yeah, this test was super easy. Yes, if you had a limited time, these tests aren't that bad. The issue, what makes it really challenging, is you have a time limit for this exam. So keeping that in mind, I always joke with students. I tell them this is not a test; it's a test to learn how to. You can take a test. Is one of the big things over here, right? So the strategy is take a practice test and see what you like better. Then you want to take it over here. Knowledge. You take it here. You should plan to take 2 exams as well too. The first exam, right, is your first try. You're probably nervous on the first one. Because you're probably nervous, you're probably not going to do the best that you can on the exam. So on your second try, you're less nervous, right? Less nervous, and you know what to expect as well too. So you already saw the test once, so you know exactly, oh, they're gonna ask me these type of things. Because then it's standardized. I told students there's no surprises on these exams. You should know what to do. And so again, how to study. Last thing for today as well for you guys is how to study for this, because people think it's how to study. For those who don't know, I actually used to be head of high school of a test prep company, so I help students prep for the SAT and ACT on an international level as well too. And if you guys want to look up YouTube, look up like Coach Tony Magoosh. I did like a training video with them as well too. That was the company I was with to do test prep. And again, if people think it's super complicated, it's not that bad. the biggest thing to study, right? This is a standardized test, which means there are no surprise questions, right? Everything they're going to test you on, they tell you. They tell you, we're going to give you 30% of algebra questions. We're going to give you 25% geometry problems. We're going to give you 1% trigonometry problems. We're going to give you 15% reading comprehension. They tell you exactly what you need to do, right? All you need to do, and the strategy is simple, right? Take 3 practice tests. That's it, right? 3 practice tests will cover approximately 99% of the questions you'll be asked on the exam. Right? People think it's more complicated than no. 3 exams, 3 questions have cover majority of the content as well too, right? The reason why students don't do well is that they never learn from their mistakes. The number one advice I tell students is that if you never make the same mistake twice, it takes only 3 practice tests to get a perfect score. Can't type, right? That's it. 3 practice to get a perfect score. People take forever and ever. And again, for those who don't believe me, look at your students' practice test scores. Look at the questions they got wrong on test 1. Look at the questions they got wrong on test 2. The reason why students are stuck, they're getting the same exact questions wrong every single time, right? That's the reason why. So again, if you notice, and to how to study, right? That's the tip, right? Is focus on the areas you're getting wrong. That's it. That's all you need to do. Again, people, it sounds too simple. Yeah, because it is pretty simple. And it's a practice test game. Again, this is assuming you know the knowledge, right? If you don't know, like if you don't know to do it, cool. Let's go back. Let's relearn the thing. Let's study the thing. Again, keep in mind that the for those who want to study, a little pro tip here. Pro tip, right? Khan Academy, right? Partnered up with College Board, right? With College Board. If you guys go to Khan Academy, I'm sure you guys have used it, right? It's a free learning platform as well too. Every topic taught in the SAT or tested in the SAT is taught in Khan Academy. So there's no excuses like, oh, I never learned that. Cool. Go online, right? Look up a topic and learn there. They have practice problems too for you to guys to do, right? So the big thing when it comes to here is you got to take the practice test, but learn why you did it. That's the most important thing. Most students miss this part, right? Or this part right here. They never learn from their mistakes because when I look at their test score, I'm like, show me your practice tests. All right, show me the questions you got wrong. What type of questions? Let's look at the last test. Huh? It's the exact same things you got wrong. Ideally, if you get new things wrong, it's different questions, and that's cool. That's cool because now you're cool. What other topics do I need to learn? But eventually, if you take three, and the more you do, by the way, the closer and closer you should get to perfect score. That's the key of this is a thing. And keep in mind, you don't have a lot of time, right? Because again, we're going back to the macro strategy now, right? The reason why we don't want to spend so much time on here is that this is just one small component of the admissions process. We do want to also spend time focusing on your activities and your application. So we want to juggle. And the reason also why I tell students probably don't take your exam in where is it in senior year is because senior year you have 12th grade, you have apps, right? 12th grade is college apps as well too. So do you want to juggle college apps with studying for the SAT? So that's kind of the thing, right? Some students will because they start a little late, but if you can, ideally you want to do it earlier is the key too. Okay. One little caveat I'll share at the very end for those who are still like, ooh, interesting as well too, right? The one other reason to take the SAT or ACT is merit scholarships, right? So this is the one thing a lot of people don't think too much about, right? But it's out there. There are colleges, right? Colleges do offer free money as long as you get X score. That's all it is. You get a certain score, they will give you money at their school. So for those of us who like free money, I'm hoping a lot of us do, right? That's the score you want to aim for now. Again, ideally, it's probably within the score that you want to hit from earlier, right? Here as well too. But for a lot of schools that you apply to, again, keep in mind not every school does. So keep that in mind. Notes, right? Oops, notes. Not every college does. But there are schools that do. So one of the things as you are creating your college list, as you are looking up, hey, what's their 50th, 75th percentile score? Also look up merit scholarship, right? Do you offer a merit scholarship with a certain score? And certain schools, as long as you get like a 1300, 1350, boom, automatic 20,000. No questions asked if you come here the following year, right? So that's one of the huge reasons why you still want to consider the SAT or ACT. This concept, because again, if you're some schools like, hey, if I just take it and I'll get this much money, that's a really cool. Money is probably one of the big reasons why a lot of parents, a lot of students pick certain schools. So it's very easy to again. But the thing is, you have to plan ahead. But you need to plan ahead, right? Don't wait to the very end and be like, oh no, it's December. I haven't if I got my score an extra 10 points, I could have gotten this thing as well too. Plan ahead. Again, a lot of it goes back to the planning. Hey, making sure what schools I want to go to, what's the requirements, what do I need to do? Okay. Awesome. That has been the trading for you guys here today. As again, hopefully that was a little helpful for you guys to understand should you not do it as well too. The big changes are the changing the test scores for next year. But the strategy for us that we've been kind of sharing has worked really strong. We're bringing it into the new year for our coaching families as well too. So that's pretty much it for me. If you have any questions, let me know. If not, I'll see you guys in the next video.